Welcome to Paint with Brian. I'm Brian, and today we're painting Rustic Barn. Here's the inventory. The set of Plaid gold Taklon brushes and liner, a ruler, a water cup, masking tape, and a full palette of Plaid FolkArt paints. All colors will be listed on the right during the painting and in the description. I've adhered the plaid wood plaque to this canvas so I can paint on it easily and have the drawing transferred. That's also in the description. I have my 1-inch gold Taklon brush and a paper plate as a palette. And I want to mix the sky color first, taking 3 scoops of white, the wicker white, and then a scoop of the true blue and start to mix them up. You want to make the darkest value of the sky color that you want, and we'll lighten it up from there. Once I arrive at the color, I add water to the mix so it flows easily. You don't want it translucent, you still want it solid, but straight paint tends to be a little bit thicker, so we thin that down. I'm chiseling off on the edge of the brush. I don't want to be too thick, and hold back on the brush, and I'm painting this routed finished edge to the wood plaque at first. You can paint the scene on any surface, paper, even drywall, but we're using our plaid wood plaque, which has been primed and base coated with the FolkArt wicker white. I want my finished painting to go all the way around the edge, and that's why I'm doing this first. You could wait until the end and do it in a contrasting or complementary color. I'm starting on the sky, just a line running across the top. I want to make sure I'm opaque. Again, if you can see through it, add more paint. And if it feels too thick, add a bit more water. I'm going to keep an organic edge to this line, not a straight line. That way if something shows up when it dries, it looks like it's a cloud formation. Then take some white into the same color. We're just lighting up the value just a little bit. And I go straight on to the organic blue line and blend. And the more you blend, the softer it will get. I'm cutting along that roof line. Continuing with the lighter color. I'm going over part of my tree. That's okay because I have my reference material to go from, plus I can change the shape of the tree into any form that I'd like as long as it looks like a tree. A little bit more white added to the mix to get a little bit lighter. Here I'm adding some blue flecks that will be shining through some open parts of the tree. You can see in the photo in the upper right, you can see clouds behind there. A bit more of the white added to the mix, and now we already have our fourth value of blue. The sky always gets lighter as it goes downwards towards the horizon. Now I'm testing out this lighter value so I can just block in my cloud forms. These will be lighter later on. Right now I just want to get the shape of a cloud going. The cloud is rounder on the top, different heights. I'm doing what I call a slow build. That way I can change it accordingly. Make the top of the cloud come up. I need that dark blue behind it. I always say preserve your dark areas. Now if you wanted no clouds in the sky, you could just do a simple gradient from the darkest blue and then keep adding white as you blend and go downwards. A little bit more white into the mix, and I just want to go on the top edge of the cloud. Organically, it's not just one line. I want to imagine where the sun hits that cloud. So I don't work all the way down to the lower part of the cloud. I want to highlight it. Now with this lighter value that I just had on the horizon, I'm just tapping a little bit on the upper edge of these clouds to make them pop. You see, I'm just using the corner of my brush there. Imagining where the light source is coming from, which I've deemed to be upper right in this photo. Probably when the photo was taken, it was probably a cloud in front of the sun, but I need a constant reference as to where the light is coming from. So I'll just use upper right. Some skinny clouds on the horizon just by tapping into the mix in the white. Now with the small flat gold Taklon brush, I'm starting a base by mixing white, and then the holly leaf green, You can see it's high saturation. Saturation means brightness, so I've tapped into some brown and I'm mixing that together to desaturate it. I'm getting ready to paint the roof, and though it's a bit lighter on top, I don't need it that bright. So I've just toned down the holly leaf by adding the brown coffee bean, added some water to the mix, and now cutting my line for that plane, the upper part of the roof. It's okay if you end up a bit out of the lines. There are different ways to clean that up, or maybe you can do that consistently to create a different style. After all, it's a painting. Mixing up more brown into the same mix, testing that. So you see the desaturation that we have. So we're setting off these two different planes. One, the light source hits differently, and two, this outer plane is very weathered. It's darker. Just cutting lines and blocking it in. I don't want to scrub. I keep a low angle to the brush then to create the least amount of friction possible because I want maximum coverage. And you can see this dark shade of green covers really well over solid white. So the FolkArt matte is doing its job. I cut the line by holding the brush at a low angle, and we're just piecing it together. And you can fully see now the contrast that we needed. Back to the large 1-inch brush. And I'm mixing up the red, the engine red. I put a bit of yellow into it because I don't want it to get too pink too quick when I add the white. It's just the dynamic when you put red and white together, it's going to make pink. Then some brown into the color to desaturate it. It's worth it to take extra time to mix your colors. Some water into the mix. And I'll test it out here. And I want to do the shadowed side, that left side, strongly weathered side of the barn first. So I want to get more desaturated than that. I'm adding the coffee bean brown to it. Test it out, looks good. I'm carefully cutting my line to the roof. And again at low angle, brush out to block it in. This is just the first layer, the blocking in. Once that's dry later on, we can go over it with different colors to get the weather effect. Just for reference, this wood plaque is just slightly larger than 5 by 7. Second check for coverage. Okay, into the same red, I want to mix the right side barn color, which is more saturated. And I've added red and some brown to the exact same mix. Test out my saturation. Onto the surface. A bit of white to lighten it up. Test it again. And I like it. And start cutting and blocking in. Make sure there's enough water in my mix. There's more than one way to cut a line. My ultimate goal is to get a fairly straight edge, even though it is a rustic barn. So there's some leeway there. the area around the left side of the door. I want to take this a little bit further to the right with the red color than I need to. My tree will overlap it. Good solid color with this engine red, desaturated slightly. Now back to the small brush. And mixing white, the wicker white with the coffee bean to get this sort of tan color. Some of the same off to the side, and I put a bit of the licorice black into it. Mixing the darkest color for the stone base. In the actual photo, the stone base is covered with a lot of foliage. But I want to lay this in here first, and I can add the foliage on top later. Feel free to use artistic license. You can change the image any way you like. If you want to change the color or the form. The idea is to have fun while doing it. And that's what we do here, is have fun with paint. So I have the shadowed side to the building. That's why I added the black to the color, to desaturate it. Color is always less saturated in the shadow area. I'm taking it down a little bit further than I need to because the grass and the weeds and all will cover that up. I also have this shaded, shadowed area on this side of the ramp. Imagining our light source is coming from the upper right, then everything opposite that side will be shadowed. Bringing the ramp out to a point. That's where my water cup is, attached to the side of my easel. So I cleaned it out, and I'm going back into the original sort of tan color that I made. And where the light hits here, this should be lighter than the shadow side. It should be lighter, and it should be more saturated. But I think I should make this slightly lighter. I went ahead and blocked it in. But I'm going to take some white and lighten this up. Good, I like that. Now on the flat plane of the ramp, where you would walk up it or pull a cart up there and let the horse out, that will also be catching light. So I use the light color there. It should stay relatively the same width going up that ramp. Good, you can see the change in value from the distance. That's a good sign. I'm adding some more of the coffee bean to it. And some black, which is basically remixing the shadow tone, because I realized the small sliver here needs some color on it, and that could be blocked out by the tree, so it's okay if it's a little bit darker. I pull off a new palette. I usually like to keep about 5 in a stack there because it's firm. Back to the small brush. And a base of white, which white has a lot of titanium dioxide in it. It's a covering agent. So it doesn't matter what color I'm mixing. I usually start out with a little bit of white into the holly leaf and into some yellow to make a yellowish green. So we've changed it slightly with more yellow. This is for the landmass. So I have a nice yellow green, and I add the coffee bean to it, the brown, to desaturate it because I'm used to working with a desaturated palette. Test it out. You can see in the photo it's fairly bright behind the barn. It's probably one of the highest saturated greens in the entire scheme. I'm slowly working across that field. I want to include my edges. I'm blocking this lower section, including the edges. On the actual photo, we have a lot of weeds and brown things that I may or may not add using my artistic license. Slowly cutting this line, which is irregular because it is, in this case, grassy area. And just need to go off the perspective lines that are already dictated by the drawing. To the edge of my ramp. Just wiggling it up to the edge there to give an organic, natural looking edge, not a straight line. And then we have paint on almost the entire image except for the tree. Using a low angle here to get good coverage. That little white spot coming through that usually happens when wood gets too wet, and of course after putting so much paint on it, so I just let it tack up a little bit. And then when you brush over it, it will cover fine. And going far back enough with my green that after I put the tree on, I won't have to come in and do this later. Around my edges. Now in the same green that we're working with, I've added the school bus yellow and some white to get the next lighter value. I try to use 3 values in everything I do. And the saying is, if it looks flat, it probably needs another value. So I want to imagine where the light is coming and hitting on the field. So I come forward, shows more details, becomes more textured. I'm thinking of the light falling and where the barn would block that light. So I have it right in front of this lit stone portion. I'm intentionally staying away from the shadowed side of the barn. Working the front where the light is definitely catching. Just with small tick marks in a slow build. And the ramp is also casting a shadow, so I slowly want to work my way there. I don't want to cover up my dark value or get in there too soon. This being the foreground and closest to us will have the most contrast and the most texture. Getting some lighter values into that back grassy area. I'm going 1 value lighter. I've mixed some white into the same color that we're working with. Good, that shows up nicely. So we have 3 values in the area. This for the highlights on anything that pops out. Now mixing some white with the holly leaf green and some brown, the coffee bean, into that. And what I'm doing is mixing the darkest value of our tree. And I want to do the full tree in the darkest green first. I know it changes to orange at the top, but if I set the form with the darkest green, then I can add the orange over that. We're essentially drawing with the brush. More of the coffee bean to get a more desaturated color. So I need the darkest value of my tree, but also the most desaturated part of it, the not so bright, the shadowed part. Holding back on the brush, starting with just small slivers. See, we have a darker desaturated green. I want to make sure I take that all the way off of the edge. I want to do a slow build with my tree. If I go too fast and too quickly into that barn, I could end up covering that nice white door and having to repaint something, which is fine, but I would just rather work up slowly to it. So I just inch my way over when it comes to the barn. The color slightly changed as I was mixing it. That's fine. It's still in the same family. It's a good dark value. I also have to be careful not to run into my ramp. If you look at the tree, it has a sort of pear shape to it. So keep that in mind as I work along. And I'd also put those little blue patches, those tick marks on there to remind myself to leave some open space where the light passes through. Now if you forget, you can always paint your tree and then go in with a small brush or liner and add some light blue areas to it. Want a slow build, organic edge, nothing squared, straight lined, or too rounded. Leaving some spots where the light passes through and inching my way over onto the barn. Irregular edge, an organic edge. Nothing that repeats what I call the sawtooth. When you look at the edge of a saw, it's always the same shape, same distance apart. I don't want the sawtooth effect. I want it irregular. And I don't have to bring it all the way up to the point because the orange will do that. Just double checking my form and coverage. I need to make the main tone, which is the green that I started out with, which was the holly leaf and a bit of white, also some yellow I've added. It needs to be at least one value step up so you can see the contrast, and it is. I'm going to start with a small series of tick marks. I'm not working it all the way down into the shadow color. I just think of a mass and then build an organic form from there. And I jump around. I don't want to stay too tight and fill an entire area in and end up removing the darkest value, which I need for this contrast. I try to imagine the limbs coming out towards me and catching light. And when they do that, they also create shadow. So we have the dark spaces under there. Light is passing through that hole. And there's another limb coming out towards me. The top side of the tree catches a lot of light. So it was on the upper right side of these masses. Often when I teach painting trees and other objects, I say 2/3 highlight side. So I want to cover up at least 2/3 of the darkest value. And I want that coming up on the highlight side. This is probably going to be more like 3/4 highlight side. And this is our main tone. We have the shadow, main tone, and highlight. Now I'm mixing up the darkest color for the trunk. And I've done it with coffee bean and black, the licorice black, to desaturate it. And I'm using the liner brush. Remember, a tree trunk base gets wider, and I'm changing it from the actual photo and making it come out even wider. And I'm allowed to do that. And now a few limbs. I tend to be pretty sparse with limbs. If I have a good tree form, it doesn't need a lot of limbs. Now I'm mixing up the white and the coffee bean to a darker tannish color. And I'm using that on this overhang. In the photo, it appears pretty dark. There's a lot of black in that. I don't feel I need to go that direction. I do want to keep it warm. And I've gone a little bit off the line, so I don't want this object sticking out so much. So if I can just pull it off in this desaturated brownish tone, maybe it will be less noticeable. I'll have some cleaning up to do after this, but I just want to get that white area of this part of the structure blocked in and take it from there. Just cleaning up. Just had that one white spot sticking out. And I'm using the same value to create the line between the two doors. And now with the liner and the white and the blue, because I know that's the sky color, I'm going to do a little bit of touch up, cut the tip off of there. Seemed a bit high. Cleaning up the outer edge. Now if you made it this far and you like it and you don't want to do anything else to it, just leave it this way. It looks perfectly fine this way. But I'll show you how to make it a little bit more advanced. And this is my ruler with the tape and two caps on the end. And that's much like a maul stick, a paint ruler. And that will help me paint straight lines. So with my large brush, I'm mixing up some colors for the roof, and the weathered part of the roof, I'm mixing holly leaf, wicker white, the licorice black, lightening it up because I'm going to make a very thinned version of this. I'm going to dry brush with the brush to make those lines on it. Wipe it off with a napkin. Check it out on the surface and it makes the irregular lines. So you can see it's greenish, blackish, a bit thinner. I have hardly any paint in this brush. And I hold my ruler at the angle. Just lightly press down, and if you can't see it, just press a bit harder. I want these to be irregular at the end. So I just overlap them. And it will look a bit stark at first when you start glazing, but then you'll see it come to life. You can already from a distance see the depth that you're getting versus the top of the roof. We're getting a little bit closer to what we see in the photo. And I'm taking a new plate. Okay, now I'm mixing something up similar for the shadowed side of the barn, using the large brush with red and yellow and some coffee bean brown in there, and there's also black. testing it out against the original shadowed side to the barn. More of the coffee bean. Seeing how it brushes out. Getting my ruler and setting on at an angle to get the weathered effect to the shadowed side of the barn. Again, this is called dry brushing, and if you have to, use a napkin or a rag to get the excess paint out of your brush, and it helps when you mix it up a bit thinner like I did. I want to stop short of my stone line. I went a bit too far then. Just wipe it off. Trying to get this up under that eave. And adding white to the same mix to get a second value so it shows up lighter. Appears to be almost white, but it is not. It's just a lightened version of that darker weathering color. I'm using our photo reference in the upper right to get the coloration and values and the distressing on this, the weathering. And now I want to work on the highlighted barn side, the more red side of the barn, with some white and red, and then the coffee bean into it. You can see the mix is thin. Just so I get some texture and some lines on that lit side of the barn for some aging. Carefully around the tree. A little cleanup on the stonework. I'm adding green to the black distressing mix that we had to darken it, and I'm putting in the shadowed or darker area that may not get light on the landmass, getting actually a fourth value. With the main green tone, we lightened it up twice and created this dark, and imagining where the light would be blocked. And now with the liner, again making the tan tone using the coffee bean and white as a base, and then I put the licorice black into it so I can do some lining. Check it over the stonework. This gives the separation line between the stone and the wood. The wood casts the shadow, and shadows are always a little bit darker value and desaturated. And that's how we came up with the mix. in the corner. And with the same color, I'm adding indication of the stones. You don't have to go over every inch to indicate stonework. We do want different sizes. That one's a sort of cornerstone. Different lengths and widths, all subject to change. Then white into the same mix. For a lighter colored stone. It's just a little bit lighter value. Need to add more white. Needs to be visible. There we go. Same principle, different lengths and widths. Just trimmed up the larger stone with that. There we can get some of the brightness. Have enough white in it now that it shows up. A little bit more subdued on the shadow side. And I'm going along the top edge of the ramp to make it seem like it's raised slightly above the surface that you walk on. A few stones there. And since I already have the color, I'm going to pull out the edge of the roof and just cleaning up with it. And I just darkened it up with the licorice to create this shadow line from the roof and clean the edge up. So just a slight value darker. Now I'll put the lightning rod on there. And using this same darker value, just increasing the separation line. The dark value right between the wood and the stone. All the way across. Now to define where that roof overhang meets the red wood, and I'm putting on two birds in a V shape, an open V. So maybe there are two crows flying over the barn. I always like to do that two different sizes. So one seems like he's chasing the other, or they're just flying together but not parallel. Doing the top rail of the sliding barn door, and also in this darker value. Again, this darker value is not straight black. I rarely use straight black on anything while I'm painting. And I did the highlight side of the trunk to make it catch light and soften it up. Little cleanup here. And now with the small brush, I'm putting together white, the wicker white, the school bus yellow, some red, the engine red, because red and yellow make orange, and this will be for the orange part of the tree. And then I add the coffee bean brown to that same mix to make a desaturated color. And I'm taking this orangish tone and building the tree up to a point, slowly adding the leaves, keeping in mind where light will pass through. I'm taking it on the upper right side of these green masses that we already developed. I don't want to work all the way down to the shadow side because I already have dark color in there. Again, when a branch comes out towards me, if I give it a lighter value, that will appear so. Light passing through the hole. And we have two things in play. We have light and shadow, but we have the actual color change within the tree. So it's just best for me to start out on the upper right area of these masses, not into the shadow so much, and do a slow build. Okay, back to my original color, which was wicker white, school bus yellow, and engine red to get this orange. This is the main tone of the leaf. We have the shadow tone on already. Now we've added the main tone. So I want that to be brighter, more saturated, a lighter value. And putting that where most of the light catches. We already have a very good three-dimensional structure because of the values that we put on the tree. So, didn't want to overdo it. I'm satisfied with it. And now with the white, yellow, and the licorice black, putting a few lines on the top of the roof using the ruler and the liner brush. Just makes it a bit distressed and less like a solid color. A couple of these lines onto the side as well. I have a little bit more control with the liner brush versus just dry brushing and the 1-inch brush. And while I have this dark color, I'm going to draw with it and use my ruler. So on the left side of that roof line, I want to define some features, sharpen some edges. There in the corner, but I got off my line, wiped it off, that's fine. Freehand it. I'm going to see if I can increase this line between the two materials. In a line where the door would cast a shadow onto the top of the ramp. Some tick marks under my tree. I'm doing some tick marks in the shadowed area of the grass, the shadowed side of the barn. And I want to place the window that's on the end of the barn, but that's not quite dark enough. So I'll mix some more of the licorice black into the mix. There we go. For the opening at the end of the barn, and also there is I'll say a diamond shaped pattern. It's really a square over the door. And then I lighten up that value with wicker white so I can build the frame to the opening. Light enough that we can see it, but not too stark. And slowly build the framework around it. And same on the end. I want to increase the separation between these doors. The white doors look pretty stark now because it's just the solid white paint from the base coat. So I'm just washing in here with a grayish tone made with the white and black just to age the doors a bit, give them some texture. And I think I'll use the small brush, just a slight bit of moisture on it, and wash out those lines and age both the doors a bit. You can see how durable the paint is. I just put that line between the doors and it didn't even wash off when I rubbed over the top of it with water. So great testament to the durability of the FolkArt matte paint. Just increasing the line between the two planes of these roofs, now with the thinned white in just a glaze. It's slightly off-white. It's the wicker white mixed in with a little bit of the green. Same on the weather side to increase contrast. And that separation line from the upper part of the barn and the overhang. And I feel like this edge needs more definition, so I'll just run that right at the edge, set it off. Pulling it off now, I just had it rigged up there with the masking tape. That's what the masking tape is for. But you could paint it flat on a table. And that's our wood plaque. Rustic barn on a wood plaque. Ready to hang on the wall or set on a shelf like this. Thanks so much for watching. Please like and subscribe. Please comment, especially if you have questions. Please feel free to ask. And as always, have fun with paint.